morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming. And so today is time management in business, and I love this quote. And I used it, I think, in my recent newsletter. Time is actually, you hear often people say time is money. Well, if you think about it, time is actually more valuable than money, because you can get more money, but you can never get more time. I mean, it's it. We have so much time, that's it. So anyway, something to think about when people say time is money, that it's really more. So what are we going to talk about now? I'd like to talk about these 5 fundamentals and the 5 stages of mastering workflow, then processing and organizing collection points, and we're going to talk about what all these things mean in a second, controlling our goals, and finally the power of using tools like Microsoft Outlook. And we're going to specifically be talking about Outlook, but it also applies to other similar kind of programs. So let's start with the 5 stages of mastering workflow. And this is right out of David Allen. This is sort of his concept, and we're going to talk in detail about this. But the stage is we want to collect, then we want to process, organize, review, and then do stuff. And by being disciplined about going through that, we end up being much more focused on the things we want to do. I think the key is not to do everything, but to do the right things, right? So the whole thing, probably the basic key to time management is exactly that, right? Let's be working on the right things, using our time effectively, not trying to do everything, because as we talked about earlier, you used to be able to, 30 years ago, you'd go to your office and you could actually finish everything on your desk and go home with an empty desk, and the inbox is all in the outbox, and all the phone calls have been returned, and you go home, you're done. And now, there's 500 emails still in your inbox, and there's, all this other stuff. You can never finish it all. So, we got to work on the important stuff. Then, the next stage is going to be processing all that. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, so I'm going to go more briefly on this. But item by item, you want to empty those collection buckets. The classic thing of that paper inbox on your desk, you want to get it to empty all the time. So every day, every week, some process for you need to get it to empty. Your inbox on your computer, it's got to go to empty. You have to empty those so that everything's being worked on somewhere, and it's not all in your head, or it's not bugging you that there's this pile of papers, and somewhere in there is that bill that's due tomorrow. I forgot about it, right? And you don't want to, and that's what gives us stress, and that's what makes us feel like we're not in control of things. So, and we want to have a process for emptying those buckets. And then the next thing is organizing it, and we're going to talk about the 8 categories of ways to set up reminders for ourselves of how to organize all this stuff, because it's a lot of different materials that we're talking about, and that come out of the process phase. And then we're going to review it, and we want to have a process for ourselves that we don't just file stuff away and it's gone, because then we're going to forget about stuff, and that's not going to be good. We need to have a process set up where we review the stuff that we do have, and setting up a weekly review meeting with yourself, or a monthly meeting, whatever it is for yourself or for your team, to make sure you're looking at all those things, that stuff doesn't slip through the cracks. Because if it starts to slip through, then you're not going to follow the new system, and you're going to go back to your old ways, because you're going to feel uncomfortable about what's going on. And you want to review it really from a high level down, right? And then finally, why we're doing this in the first place, you want to do stuff. But the concept here is you want to have a process that facilitates good choices. And one of the things that David Allen also talked about is a lot of times we have to-do lists, but the to-do list is kind of useless, because it's a whole bunch of things that you can't do right now when you have a list in your hands. Like, you're driving down the road, you can't be looking stuff up on the computer. But way down on that list there were these 2 phone calls. I could actually return this phone call while you're stopped at a light, of course, dialing, and then only talking when you're, right? Anyway, so one of the things is to create to-do lists that are based on your physical condition. So sitting at the office, driving somewhere, waiting for something. There are different ways of organizing a list so that it's useful to you when you're, maybe when you have a computer but it's not online, or when you have a computer and it is online. So there are different ways of segmenting your to-do list so that you always have an active thing you can work on at the moment. But the idea is to reduce all these points, because we tend to have way too many different places where we leave stuff and little notes and reminders and all over. Bring them all into one place. And once you've got that pile, and it might be, if you haven't done this before, you might have a big pile.
Will never be empty.
Get a big stack, and if it doesn't fit on the stack, put it on the floor next to it. But bring it all together without processing it, right? Just bring it all together, and now we're going to start. This is like sort of phase 2. We got all that stuff. So it's in some kind of an in basket. The first question is, what is it? What is it, and does it pertain to one of my meaningful objectives? Is this something that's really important to one of the goals I've set for myself personally or for business? So is it an important item? Because if it's not, why am I looking at it in the first place? But that really helps when you're identifying what it is. So I pick up a document that's in the pile, and I look at it and I say, what is this thing anyway? It's like some brochure from someplace that I don't even care about, right? Or this is very important to my business, I need this. This is an important document. If you can't, then you can delegate it. That's a great one to do. Remember, when you're delegating...
How do you delegate it when you work for yourself?
Well, I delegate a lot of stuff when I work for myself.
How do you do that?
Well, I have a bookkeeper, I have a CPA, I've got a virtual assistant, so I surround myself with others that can help me with things, right?
Okay.
So you can, I have a wife and kids, there's a lot of things that...
I can never delegate anything to my husband.
Oh. Well, maybe, I don't know, but there are ways to look into that, but I think even when we're alone, we do have some kind of a support network, right? So there's some things you can delegate, and then the other one is, of course, just defer it. Procrastination is great if you know what you're procrastinating. It's only dangerous when it creeps up on you because you didn't really realize the consequences. But deferring is a fantastic way to get rid of work, especially if it's not really important to be done now. It's something that's in a month from now, so let me defer that. So is that clear on the process? So we're taking all this stuff, and you might end up with a big inbox with a bunch of papers on it and a bunch of reminders and notes from all over the place. Pile them up and just run. And this process you want to then do once big and then keep doing it continuously. Every time something comes in, you think about these steps. Is that good? Mm-hmm. This category I like the best over here. This is one of my favorite ones. I don't use it enough myself. I'm a bit of a pack rat, I'll admit that. So I really suffer from this problem. Trash, that's a great one, right? I really don't need this. It's really not important. Just get rid of it right away. Get it off your desk. Get rid of it.
But that's like a task in itself, because so much of the paper stuff that comes in you have to shred.
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
That's a project.
And that's
there you go.
a project.
That's a project.
But you can have a shred pile and just bring it to my Marshfield Office Center, and they have a big shredder in the thing. You just throw it
never
in.
thought of that. I have the little shredder that keeps burning out.
I know.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Put it at home and use it for your fire pit.
Yeah. Fire pit.
I
Light
thought
on
of
fire.
that too, but
Yeah.
thought of that.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I send it back.
I've done that too,
back
yeah.
To work with my husband to shred.
Same
Just
thing.
don't throw it
But I
away.
have so much of
You
it,
don't have
so
to
it's
shred.
anyway. So there we go.
Perfect.
Solution right there. The fire pit.
Perfect.
The other one is, well, maybe it's an incubation item. So this is something that it needs time. I can't really decide on it right now. So it's kind of an issue that I'm not really sure about. I can't really decide. So now it goes into some kind of an incubation file. So a file that you're going to look at again in a particular period of time. Maybe you review that file once a week. Maybe you review, it depends on your business. But you have a file for things. They don't go back in the inbox because you've already looked at it once. You only want to look at stuff one time. It's in your inbox only once. After that, it's somewhere else to be worked on. So then the final one up here is it's a reference material. So it's a document that you want to keep. And you have a file folder system laid out where you put, marketing materials or brochures from competitors, or you have, information about your home heating system. I don't know, whatever it is that you need files on. That ends up being something that gets filed in a logical way that's consistent with how you run your life and how you run your business. Does that make sense? So these are all the things that are not actionable. So nothing to do right now, and there's only 3 places they can possibly go. Is that good? So now if we're down here in the, it's going to take more than 2 minutes to do, we've got the waiting category. Waiting means, so okay, well, I'm going to delegate it, so I'm going to ask Maura to take care of this thing for me. But what do I do now? So I often used to have this problem where I would like send somebody an email, and this works by the way in email or in physical mail, this whole process, right? So I'd send Maura an email and say, hey, would you follow up? Could you do this thing for me? Get this research, do this. And then now what do I do? Now, what if she doesn't get back to me? So that email goes into my waiting file, and you can also have a physical one where you put it in your waiting for file. So now I have a place that I can review, that I have a copy of that email in there that I'm waiting for Maura to get back to me with the data on some research she's doing for me.
But can't you just, take that email and make it a task to follow up in 2 days or a week?
Exactly.
Or whatever, so you don't even have something paper.
Right, because this works both electronically, and I do that electronically. I'll make a task that'll then say, check back in 3 days to see if Maura's done it, but that's categorized in a separate place called waiting for others, right? So I'm waiting for others. So I know at any moment I can just click on that file and see I'm waiting for 15 people to get back to me on 15 totally different items. But I know where to look for that, right? So it's not, this was a huge one for me because I was always kind of lost with what do I do with this request now? And sometimes it's not important. Sometimes I don't care if they get back to me. Then it doesn't go into that file. If it's kind of a meaningless thing, whether they do it or not, it's not a big deal. But if it's something I'm really waiting for, because it's holding me up to go to the next step on whatever project I'm working on, it goes in that file. I can review it every week, and I can see, okay, who's gotten back to me and not. Maybe Maura got back to me, and somebody else didn't get back to me, and now I can follow up with them and say, hey, you said you were going to do this in a week. It's been a week and a half. I still don't have a result. Let's move forward. So. And make sure when you do delegate stuff that you tell them when you need it, right? Put a date on the paper. So today is the 15th of June, and I'd love to get this back from you by the 15th of July, right? Or whenever you need it back by. But make sure that when you're delegating stuff, they know what the quality and what the timing is on what you're expecting back. So I want to switch gears a little bit. I mentioned this earlier, and I want to talk a little bit about meaningful objectives. And this is something that Sally McGee in the Take Back Your Life book does quite a good job on. Are we doing the right things, or are we just doing things? And it's all about, does it relate to our meaningful objectives? And what's a meaningful objective? It's the ultimate or long-term result that links to some corporate or some personal mission or goal statement. So I'm trying to be what as a person, or I'm trying to create what in my business, or in my role within a business. I mean, this applies to everybody, not just a business owner. I mean, it really applies to everybody that's working, or even in your personal life. What are those objectives? What am I trying to really accomplish? And let's think about what they are. So a specific meaningful objective is going to roll up to some corporate mission or goal statement. So if you're in a business, you want to ask your boss, what's the goal? Do we have a vision statement? Do we have a mission statement for what we want to be? And whatever I set as a goal, it should kind of roll up to that. It should be aligned with wherever the overall corporate mission is going. It should have a clearly defined outcome. Your goal might be to earn an extra $10,000 in profits this year, right? That might be the goal. And if your business goals are lined up with that, then so my goal is contributing to that. I'm going to generate an extra $10,000 in profits for the company this year. It usually involves multiple supporting projects, so that might be cost savings, revenue expansion. There might be different things that are going into creating that. It might require some multiple resources, not something that's just me alone. I might have to get other people to help me to do this. It might be other departments, or it might be other people. It might be clients or vendors. It takes place over time, but it has specific due dates. For instance, generating $10,000 more profit for my business by the end of the year. And it should include some corporate and some personal metrics, right? So these are the meaningful objectives that I talked about earlier that you're using to filter all of the things you're doing. So each of us should have sort of created a list of those, and I probably got you all confused. So, whoops, I went too far. So, do we get that?
Mhm.
I was going to do an exercise, but I forgot that's not here. But it would be too much to get it done. Anybody have an idea of what, for them, what a meaningful objective would be? Yeah. And the idea is to have a few of those. So profit, maybe it's fitness. Maybe some people have a goal of, I want to run the marathon next year in Boston by April, so I've got to put myself on a plan to do that. So all the things I'm doing because I'm going to be set to run the marathon, or I'm going to increase profitability, or I'm going to double the sales in my business, or I'm going to hire 4 more people, or I'm going to move to a new house. I'm going to get a new job. I don't know, whatever thing. I'm going to graduate from school. That could be a meaningful objective, right? I'm going to get all straight A's in my classes. So whatever objective it is that you're setting, you want to have 5 or 6 of these in front of you all the time. Maybe it's only 3 or 4, but generally we have a few of those because they're tied into our whole lives. And those are the ones we're looking at when we're deciding, is this important or not? Does it fit any one of these objectives? If not, maybe this is something I don't have to do. Maybe it's time to say no to that activity because it's an interesting thing that I like to do, but is it really one of my objectives? Is it really something that's important to me? And I think it's much easier in life to say yes than it is to say no. This gives us a reason to be able to say no to things. This is, Sally McGee talks about this as a dashboard, as an idea of how you could set up, if you're using Outlook, that you have sort of one page that you kind of go to as your home page. And the way this is laid out is on the left-hand side to have the folder view. And so here you could have, for instance, all of your inbox, all of your email, your personal folders, your saved emails, your inbox, all of that over here on the left, and you can navigate it by just clicking down here below what you want to look at. And then the calendar laid out here, so you see what's going on in your life. You can see all the different appointments you might have during the week. And then over on the right, you've got the monthly calendar, so if you need to quickly go to a different date. And down here, you have all of your tasks, which would be organized by those, by either your meaningful objectives, projects, how you want to, everyone has their own sort of file structure, how they like to organize.
So does that say tasks right there?
Yeah, these are all the tasks.
Tasks due today or just due in the next?
Organized by category. You can sort them by what's due now,
Okay.
or you can just have them in there by category.
I just have them in there by due now.
By due now, right.
Yeah.
So as a homework, think about creating those meaningful objectives, and using those in your decision making so that you really have a short list of things that are really important to me that I then can use to decide what to do next, what jobs to take on, what to do with all of the stuff that's coming into my life every day. So in summary, so we talked about the 5 stages, right, of mastering workflow, and I encourage you to use that that worksheet there on the workflow map on processing, organizing. Controlling our goals is so important, and that's about that last exercise we did, right? Do we really have the right goal set for ourselves? Do we really have the right objectives? And are we doing things that are supporting getting us into that place? And it's very interesting to see the power of some of these software tools that we have available to us that make it so much more efficient and effective to be working with that stuff, because more and more, when I first had my first email account, I was so excited to get 10 emails in a day. I was like, ooh, look, I got 10 emails. Oh, in my inbox, oh, there's 10 emails, That was 20 years ago. Now it's hundreds, right? And after a week, there's 1,000 unopened emails. What do you do with that? Nobody can process all that. But these tools are now catching up with the amount of inflow that you can actually manage those things. And a well set up system around that can save a lot of time.